Your hand if they can hear me. Yay. Okay, great. And can you see me okay? Awesome. We'll just give it a couple more minutes, maybe a minute. Nick, are you here? Yeah, if people could mute at the end, we will have time for questions and you can choose to unmute yourself or just chat. All right. I'll get started and then we can go back to the slide when Nick can join us, who is going to talk about the law school boot camp. So, welcome everyone. I'm glad you could join us. My name is Indrani, and I've been with Leland for a couple years now, a little over 2 years. And my background is in admissions. I've done a lot of admissions work. I was the associate director of admissions at Stanford Law School for a few years, and so I have read thousands of applications to a top law school and been behind the other side of that desk, looking over all applications and talking to faculty about applicants. And so I have a pretty good grasp on what a good application looks like. And after I left Stanford, I did start doing coaching full time. So I've helped hundreds of people get into their dream law schools. And hopefully I can help you too. So today we are going to cover 5 things that you can start on now. It is just kind of the beginning of March, and a lot of people don't really start thinking about their application until summer, or they're only focusing on studying for the LSAT. And I actually will behoove you to try and think of some other little tasks you can get out of the way, or at least partially out of the way now. And if you kind of pace yourself and your timeline is a lot kind of broader, you will be working at a much more leisurely pace than people who start in June or July, and hopefully can apply right, in September, October, when it will be early and everyone else is still scrambling and you're just kind of sitting back and waiting for your awesome results. So that's why I'm here today, to try and help guide you on the things that you can focus on now. So we will talk about the LSAT, the LSAC account, and what the Credential Assembly Service is, letters of recommendation, essays, and school research. So I've been kind of tracking Dave Killeran. He is the founder of PowerScore, which is a test prep powerhouse, really, and they help people with all sorts of different tests. He's been posting snapshots of what it looks like this year for the LSAT scores and trends as opposed to last year. And Things are really, we thought that when COVID hit and things kind of went in this trend that it would even out and kind of re calibrate, but it sounds like it's not really doing that. And a lot of more people are applying to law school still. And I think there's also, there is a correlation about economy, job market, and grad school applicants. So when it's hard to get a job, a lot of people decide, well, this is as good a time as any to go to law school. And or if they are worried that their job is not stable and they might be laid off, it's a good time to look into it. And so there is definitely a trend that when jobs are kind of harder, that grad school goes up, and we're kind of in that situation right now. So it is very competitive. It's been pretty competitive for the last several years. And as you can see from this chart, people are scoring higher and higher on their LSAT scores, their LSAT tests. So it's really important to study hard, and get as high a score as possible, especially if you are planning to apply to top 14 schools. I'm going to keep glancing over at the chat in case anyone has a question. Feel free to interrupt me if it's something that's later on. I'll just get to it later on during the Q&A if it's not relevant to what I'm talking about. But definitely, if you have a question that's relevant to what I'm saying right now, you can post it in the chat, and I'll keep my eye on that. Okay, so if you haven't yet started prepping for the LSAT and you're applying this fall, you really should start doing that. Hopefully, you've all at least taken a diagnostic test. Those tests are as close to the real thing as they can be. You'll get a feel for the test, which sections you are good at, which ones need improvement, and where you should focus as you're studying. Um, the it's not, I have some clients right now who are like, I'm not doing anything but studying. And I think that is, it might be overkill if all you're doing is studying. It does make sense to kind of mix it up. So, study for a few hours, but then you can do some of the things that we're going to talk about today, to try and get things in line so that you can apply early and really well. Everything will be in shape and ready to go. So study a little, and then you can work on these other things. And I highly recommend that if you're not working and all you're doing is studying for the LSAT. There's lots of different ways to prep for the LSAT, depending on your own style. There is like Khan Academy, which is free. They have diagnostic tests and also tutorials. There are places like Kaplan or Princeton Review, which are kind of tried and true. They have classes. Then there's places like PowerScore and Seven Sage that have hybrid formulas where you can kind of mix and match between a tutor, group classes, books. So try and find your groove and what is the best for you. And there's also Leland coaches, of course. And if you go to the Leland main page, you can pick the drop down that says you're taking a test and pick LSAT. And I have some recommendations for people who you might want to talk to in intro sessions if you have you want to do some research into a coach for LSATs. One-on-one works for a lot of people as well. So my recommendation is to take the first test, if you haven't all taken it, in June. If you don't like your score, then you can study some more and take it again in September or October. You can also apply before your second test. So if you have one test score and you want to apply, if it's a decent score but you think you can do better, you can still apply, and then the new score will come in later when it's ready. There are some caveats on that. Some schools do, if they see that you have registered for a future test, they might not look at your application yet. So if that's the case, if you're worried about that, then you might want to just apply after you have your second test. If you take your test in October, you won't get your score till the end of October, which is perfectly fine if you wait till your second test score is okay. I recommend that if you apply before Thanksgiving, you're still in good shape. So when I work with people, I tell them to stay away from Reddit. A lot of times Reddit panics people into thinking they need to apply in September. But if you think about it, It's a comparative process. So if 10 people have applied on the day the application opens, it's not like Harvard's going to admit all those 10 people. They are going to want a critical mass to really compare those 10 people to other people. If the deadline isn't for several months, it doesn't make sense to fill the class up in the first couple weeks because they might miss out on a lot of great applicants. So don't panic about applying in September. I'd much rather you take your time and really hone your application, make it as perfect as possible, and apply later than the first time you can. Just because it's open doesn't mean you need to rush. So it's much better to have put your best foot forward, take that time, and apply by Thanksgiving. Let's see. Someone asked, how do law schools perceive the GRE compared to the LSAT? Are applicants who submit an LSAT preferred to those who take the GRE, or if it even if it is a higher GRE score? So that's a really great question. The GRE was just recently, like within the last few years, acceptable for law schools, and the LSAT is still much more highly regarded. The LSAT supposedly was designed just to be a predictor of how successful someone will be in law school, and the GRE is more general. So if you have both a GRE and an LSAT score, they will look at your LSAT score more heavily than the GRE. If you have only a GRE score, that's kind of okay, but I'll talk a little bit more in school research about how you can look at medians, test scores, and stuff. The like if you look at Stanford's stats, they really have no GRE stats, so it doesn't really say how many students they admit with a GRE only. I think that's because not enough people are making it statistically valuable to even track. I think the rule is if less than 10 people are admitted with a GRE only, they won't even report it. So if you haven't started studying or preparing for either test, definitely go for the LSAT. If you've already taken the GRE because you took it for another kind of program, I still recommend you study for the LSAT and take that because it's definitely more valuable to the AdComs than just a GRE. Beyond GPA and LSAT scores, what qualities or experiences make an applicant stand out in law school's admissions process? That's a little bit out of purview for this class, but I can generally say it is a holistic approach. So if you have a really great GPA, a not so great LSAT, but your letters of recommendation are awesome and you write awesome essays and you have great experiences, it's kind of going to help mitigate any weaknesses. Same with the opposite. If you have a stellar LSAT score and not a great GPA, the other things can kind of help offset. So there's also addendum that you can write if you have kind of an anomaly in your record that you want to explain. You can explain that in an addendum. So in terms of what they're looking for, the good news is law schools don't look for anything specific. They kind of go into this process with an open heart and open mind and see who is presenting themselves. And they work really hard to put together a well-rounded class of well-rounded people. So there isn't like a profile that they're looking for. It's more solid people with who know what they want to do with a law degree. They have some great experiences on their resume. They have a good narrative that makes sense and is authentic and genuine. Their letters of recommendation are supportive of their going to law school, and they actually are very detailed about the person's strengths and what they can add to a law school environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about essays and letters of recommendation in a bit, but hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so we talked about kind of your baseline LSAT, how to prep, and timing. So if you haven't yet, I mean, if you have signed up for the LSAT, then you have an LSAC account, but actually applying to law school in the different modules can get a little bit convoluted and complex. It's not always super intuitive. I've heard that the user interface can be a little bit like a maze. So Unfortunately, I don't have an LSAC account. They used to let people like me have kind of fake accounts to play around in, but they no longer do that. So I haven't dug around in the LSAC account environment in many years, but I have heard from my clients a little bit about what it's like. Um, so I the good news is because applications are still open, you can go into your LSAC account and look around and you can see what the prompts are for the essays. You can see what it's like to, what you need to do for letters of rec. So just get familiar with yourself so that you don't feel a little bit panicked later on. I do get people who are starting to the application process in August, for example, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so clunky and convoluted and I don't know what I'm doing. So if you just get familiar with these modules a little bit early, it'll just help you feel relaxed. So everyone needs to apply through LSAC. There is no other way to apply to law school. There's also something called the Credential Assembly Service, which is different than just your LSAC account. And some people say that when they first start discovering about this service, it almost seems like an option, but it's not. You have to sign up for the Credential Assembly Service. It costs more money, of course. You have to sign up for all the schools, like the number of schools that you're going to apply for. And it's kind of an add-on service. So that's the service that will produce your academic summary report that the schools will get. They will bundle up all your information, including letters of recommendation, your resume, the essays that you write for each school, your transcripts, etc., so that then they all go to the schools. And so this is something that you have to pay for in advance, and it makes sense to do that now because you can't get your letters of recommendation uploaded until you have that set up. Is there a good what's the lowest LSAT score Stanford has accepted? I don't know the answer to that. Also, I haven't worked there in a number of years, but I know when I worked there, it was pretty high. Um, and now it's even higher, it seems like, for all the different schools. I'm going to chat something here. Um, ABA 509. So for those of you who are wondering kind of what the median LSAT scores are for different schools, if you type into Google ABA 509 and any school name like Stanford, you'll get a PDF. It's an ABA required report that each accredited law school must submit to the public and post about the incoming class of each law school admission cycle. So if you do ABA 509 for any school in the country that's accredited, you will get a nice PDF that has all the demographics of the incoming class from 2004. So you can actually find out what the 25th percentile of LSAT scores is, meaning, so if Stanford lists that 169 was the 25th percentile, I'm just picking that out of a hat. That means that 25%, only 25% of students were admitted with a 169 or below. So you can find that out about any school. So it's up there. I would say if you want to aim for a top 10, you really need to hit the mid 170s at this point. 172 is probably the lowest I would shoot for. But of course, I would go for as high as you can. Yes, you need to pay for each school application and the CAS. I believe that LSAC has fee waivers, so that's something else you can try and look at early on to see if you can qualify for fee waivers. It's something that you should do now instead of waiting till later because a lot of times these things take a long time to process. Is there a good email template to reach out to people who you want to write letters of recommendation? Um, yeah, I mean, if you wanna work with me on that, I'm happy to help with that. That's actually for my, I have packages that I do with my clients, and that's part of the package that covers helping you reach out to people, helping you put together what to say. And there's kind of, I call it a package. It's not really a package, but I recommend certain items to be sent to your letter writers before they write a letter, so that the whole goal is to make it as easy as possible for them so that they actually get it done early. So you want to provide information so that they're not kind of scratching their head and then putting it aside till the last minute because they can't really think of what to write. I would look into getting CAS right now just to get it out of the way. Just it's some of the stuff you can do now is just administrative, and once you get it done, you can forget about it and focus on other important things. So, yeah, I would look into that. Um, okay, so the Credential Assembly Service we talked about. Oh, the other thing you might want to think about is if you had accommodations in school for, extra time at tests because you have certain medical conditions, the LSAC has, they can provide accommodations to you for during the LSAT, and that's something else that can take a long time. You have to get doctor's notes and do paperwork and medical records and stuff. So I would definitely take care of that on the early side as well, or at least start it so that you can, if you're taking the test in June, for example, you have it all lined up in advance. Okay. Any more questions about this stuff? Okay. I was expecting someone to be on this with me or at least pipe in. So I will email you all after this with the correct QR code and information on the law school boot camp if he was unable to join us, which it seems like he has not popped in yet. So, but it's in June. Hopefully, I will be a participant. The boot camps are awesome. They're not just like free info sessions; they're more like working sessions. So you'll actually have deliverables and product to take with you at the end. So it's pretty cool. So there's application strategy and fundamentals, additional essays, decision time, personal statement deep dive, and things, session on letters of rec, your resume, the LSAT, and GPA. They've done a few boot camps for other programs like MBA. They've been highly successful and people give rave reviews. So I would definitely look into attending. And if you can get that huge discount, that would be awesome if you win the little contest here. So yeah, you would get almost 1,200 off if you win the contest. So I'll talk to Leland after this and see how I can make sure that you guys can enter that contest to get that off and get the boot camp for 500 bucks. That would be amazing, and hopefully I'll see you there. So write this down, this code, and you could probably apply for admission. I mean, to the contest. And again, I'll follow up with you after. I was expecting someone to be here to pipe in about this who's running the show, but I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Okay, so letters of rec. Academic letters are the best. Even if you've been out of school for a couple of years, I still highly recommend that you ask at least one professor for a recommendation letter. And one thing that my clients bring up a lot is if they've been out of school for a few years, it's like, oh, they'll never remember me, and it's embarrassing, and I feel awkward. The thing is, it's really no harm, no foul. If you ask someone and they don't remember you, who cares, right? But if you remember them as your favorite professor and you had a good relationship with them during college, it's very likely that they'll remember you. And you might have to remind them a little bit about maybe a project you did or a paper you did really well on. But, professors are really there more to just teach. They're there to help people and help their students and be mentors. So try and gain the courage to ask. And again, if they say, I'm so sorry, I don't really remember you well enough, then you can move on to the next person. But what the adcoms are trying to do when they're reading your application is assess what kind of law school applicant you will be. And the best person to let them know about those aspects of yourself in terms of what kind of student you are your past professors. So I recommend you really try, ask as many as you want. If you ask people to write letters and they upload a letter and you don't use it, they will never know. All they know is that they uploaded a letter and that they wrote it for you. I also actually recommend that even if you only need 2 letters, have 4 You can use 3 for your application up front, and then a lot of times, if you are waitlisted, and honestly, everyone is waitlisted somewhere. I literally don't know anyone that doesn't have a waitlist situation. Um, when you are waitlisted, there are things you can do to kind of like keep you at front of mind of the adcoms when they're starting to move off the waitlist. And one of those things is submitting a new letter of rec. So if you have an extra letter of rec hanging out on the LSAC, um, in your LSAC account, you can submit that and not scramble for one later, and that's great too. So yeah, I definitely recommend you ask teachers for letters of rec. Ask for more than you need, and ask early. Give them, you can ask now and give them a month. It'll just hang out there in the system, waiting for you to use it next fall. Um, Make sure they write it generically. They should not write for a specific school unless, for example, you're applying to law school to your own alma mater and they are a professor there and you want it to be specific to talk about, your skills and how you were as a student at that school. Then if it's specific to the school, that's fine, but you just won't use it for the other schools. When should we ask for letters of rec and when should we have them submit them? I would um I would say ask them now. If they're professors, I mean, it's now almost mid-March. If school ends in May, they might take off for the summer. So ask them now before they go away for the summer. And give them, if you ask them right now, you can give them a month, and that's plenty of time for them to do it. And just follow up. If you give them a deadline and they don't do it, follow up gently. This is one of the things I really mentor people about is how to handle difficult letter of recommendation situations. Someone else asked, what do admissions prefer, a letter of recommendation from a high level person versus a professor who knows you well? Definitely a professor knows you well. If you are working right now and you go into the elevator with the CEO and say good morning every morning, but that's it, that person, even though they're the CEO, will not be able to write you a valuable letter of recommendation. So you should definitely go with the person who knows you best. Um, the title doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they taught you. If we're talking about professors, they could have taught you any lecture or discussion-based class in any topic. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that they can say more than just you were nice or pleasant or a pleasure to be around and you got a good grade. They really need to talk about your problem solving, your communication, if you seem like you were helpful to other students, if you were a leader, all that kind of stuff. So try and think hard on a person that can write a letter about all those things. And it definitely matters much more than their title. Okay. Essays. So if you are studying for the oh, sorry, let me look. One last question about professors. Is there a preference for professors versus lecturers? For example, some of our professors are lecturers because they are not tenured. There is a hierarchy. So we want professors, like tenure track professors. So even if it's assistant, associate, or professor, that's totally fine. Those are weighed much more than a lecturer or like an adjunct who usually they don't do their professoring as their job. It's something on the side, and they probably don't have years and years of experience. I mean, I can think of some examples at Stanford that are an exception. There are adjunct professors at Stanford that have been doing it for 25 years and they're highly regarded and they have a PhD. But there are adjunct professors who kind of have a job that is their main gig, and then they teach some class once a quarter, once a year, like one quarter once a year. So those people probably shouldn't be writing your letter of rec. So yeah. And then if you're going to go to work for letters of rec, definitely go for a manager, someone higher up first. Like if you're working on a project, the project manager or the person that you are reporting to before you go to peers, and definitely before you go to someone who is reporting to you. The person who's reporting to you probably isn't going to be very valuable. The most valuable will be people that are working with you, where you are reporting to them, you are meeting deadlines, you are solving problems for them, that kind of thing. Okay. So, as I said before, when you are studying for the LSAT, it is definitely important to focus on that, but you shouldn't be studying all day, every day. And there are times when, if you have downtime and or you want to mix it up a little bit, you can start brainstorming now about the essays. And the nice thing is, right now, the LSAC system is still open for new applications. So you can actually go into the LSAC system, open up an application. Nothing's going to happen. The school's not going to know that you opened an application, and look at their essay prompts. I'm not sure with the current administration if essay prompts will be changed again. They were definitely changed after the Supreme Court's ruling against affirmative action. A lot of the essay prompts took out some of the language that they had or changed it. They're trying to do a workaround to still ask for a diversity statement without calling it a diversity statement. Now it seems like we're going even further down that pathway. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it won't hurt to kind of get a flavor for what the application essay prompts are right now. And every school has a different prompt. So when I work with people on essay packages or comprehensive, 90 for the comprehensive, even 90% of what I do is helping people write their essays. Even though each school has a different prompt, there are ways to address that prompt. You don't have to write a different essay for every school, I promise you. So you will have one main essay or two main essays, as I said, two flavors for that can apply to each school you're applying to. And some schools even will allow you to upload two essays. So there'll be what I call the professional essay, which is talking about your background, your aspirations, what's influencing you to get a law degree, why you need one to to reach your goals, and what your plan is after law school. I call that a professional statement. The other statement is a personal statement, and that one doesn't even mention the word law usually. It's something else. It's a personal story about yourself. Could be a diversity statement. It also could be just about, I mean, the topic literally doesn't matter. I do a whole class on essays. I'm going to be doing that later on in April. So look out for that. I'll go into depth about what I mean about professional and personal essays, but start brainstorming. Even just like bullet points, or if you remember something that was cool that happened in the last couple of years, just jot down some ideas just so that you have some place to start with. The professional essay, which is the one that most people write, that one is a little bit more prescribed and might be a little bit easier for you than the personal essay. But just have it in mind. You will be writing these super important essays, and just if you even brainstorm and take notes and think about it here and there, so that you have a starting point later on when you're actually ready to start writing, you'll be in good shape. Okay. So I think I covered that.
Indrani, do you mind if I hop on really quick?
Hi. Yes.
I am so sorry to be so late. I meant to hop on here and introduce the giveaway earlier.
Yeah.
But,
no problem. Go ahead.
Do you mind if I hop in and announce the giveaway winner here?
Oh, you already have it.
Yes, we do. And just briefly, yeah, would love to share a little bit about it. And again, thanks so much for letting me jump in here.
Sorry, Nick. Someone told me that the QR code that Amanda put into my slides was the MBA bootcamp one instead of the law one.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. I'll pass that along and make sure that gets fixed. The bit.ly/win law school here is definitely the link to sign up for. And
okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm glad that several folks were able to get in there. Just to share a little bit, the law school application bootcamp, it'll start in June, and this is an amazing way for you to get structure as you build out your application. We'll have experts like Indrani who will be teaching sessions on the personal statement, for example, and diving really deep on everything that you need to know and specific tactics to actually implement that. So where events like this were kind of informational, the boot camps are more focused on progress and doing. Indrani, our team will be in touch with you about participating in the boot camps.
Awesome.
Long story short, it's just a fantastic way to get involved with Leland and even make more progress than you are here just learning tonight. And with that, wanted to skip ahead and just announce the giveaway winner. Several of you have already applied for the giveaway, and so you'll see here we have a fantastic course outline for you. That giveaway winner, if I could jump ahead, Indrani, and announce that, will be Jesus Adrian Espinoza.
Woo!
Jesus, super excited for you. We're excited to have you in the program. Everyone else who may not have been the winner, we'll still send you a discount code to join and the link to the program. Would love to have you with us to continue your learning. But again, Indrani, thanks so much for letting me
no problem
here. And everyone would love to have you in the program with us. And with that, Indrani, back to you. So sorry for the interruption.
All right, Nick, thank you. Jesus. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. And I had a question about essay. Do you recommend writing specifically why you want to go to a certain law school on the personal statement? That's a great question. And I mean, I have an it depends answer. So if you look at those essay prompts, I was saying that all of them are different. Like I know, for example, UCLA in the essay prompt says, and why you want to go to UCLA. So there you would definitely obviously answer that question. If they don't ask, don't bother. They don't care. They know you're applying. They didn't ask. And those why essays get really tedious, speaking from experience. So if a school doesn't ask, don't force yourself to write one. There are sometimes it's in the optional supplemental statements. They'll say, here are 5 different topics you can write on, and one of them is like, why do you want to go to NYU? Then you should do it. It's actually the only optional essay that I recommend you consider required. But don't force yourself to do it if they don't ask. So I just said we're going to do, 2-page, I don't know if I said this, so sorry, 2-page double space. That's what I recommend because that is the lowest common denominator that will work for every school. Some schools say up to 3 pages. It doesn't mean you have to do 3 pages. And if you have an awesome, concise essay that is 2 pages long, that's good to go. You can send that to everyone. If a school says up to 3 pages and you have this awesome 2-page essay, and that school says, why do you want to attend our school? You can tack on an extra paragraph or half page about the school without going over their page limit. So it makes sense to have a 2-page double-spaced essay. Occasionally, you might have to squeeze the why part and shorten up your essay a little bit. And I help people with that all the time. But for the most part, you can get by with your 2-page double space and then doing the why essays if they ask. Hope that answers the question. Okay. And also remember, we're going to have question and answer the last 15 minutes of this class. So if questions come up about anything we've talked about, then just you can pipe in then. School research. It's a super important aspect of this process. Once you have an LSAT score, which is kind of the wild card because your GPA is what it is, then you can start really putting together a well-honed school list. You don't want to just kind of randomly apply to schools and see what sticks. It really makes sense. I mean, applying can be expensive. I've had people that have applied to 25 schools. I had even one guy, he applied to 50 schools the year before he hired me, and he didn't get into any of them, which was totally tragic. But he was kind of just like throwing spitballs, hoping to, something good will happen, and it didn't work. I recommend you look at your numbers as kind of the loose guide of where you can, where you are well aligned. And then you'll pick, I think 10 schools is perfectly reasonable. And if you put together a thoughtful school list, you will have options at the end. When I work with people, I try and, we just set reasonable expectations. I don't discourage you from applying to your dream schools, but I won't encourage you to apply to all 14 top schools if your LSAT is a 162, for example, because I wouldn't be able to guarantee you'll have options at the end. So, yeah, pick your three dream schools, have four that are more well aligned with your GPA and LSAT, and then a couple that you would still be very happy with, but we'd be surprised if you didn't get in. And it's one of the things I work with people once they get their LSAT scores, is really honing that list. So we do a preliminary list. When the LSAT score comes in, we kind of tinker with it a little bit. Um, I'm not saying that it's all a numbers game. It certainly is not, because I've seen people with, low GPAs get into awesome schools. I've seen people with low LSATs get into awesome schools as well. But it's not a science. It's very subjective. There's people behind this reading with their eyeballs and talking, and they might have their own implicit biases. They might love the undergrad school that you attended or the topic that you wrote your essay on. The other thing, I talked about how it is a comparative process. So there are trends, like immigration might be a very hot topic one year, and then the next year it's AI, and another year it's crypto, and another year it's constitutional rights. So we can't really predict the trends, really, but if a school gets a lot of applicants in one area, they can't admit all of them, because then their other classes would be empty, or don't have enough teachers to teach all of these students. So they really work hard to put together a well-rounded class of well-rounded people. And so, they do kind of dip lower sometimes into the GPA or the LSAT. Also, that essay can help. If you write a really strong essay, your numbers won't matter as much. So there's a lot of moving parts to think about. And so that's why I think really thinking about your school list, about where you would fit. And it's not just looking at the websites. Every law school has a glossy, beautiful website talking about how awesome they are. And so I recommend you also do some extra research. Look at those 509 reports. Look at, if you also Google any law school name, career data, you will find where people end up when they graduate from that school. You can also find out bar passage rates. So once you dip lower than the T14, if you're going to your match and kind of backup, likely schools, make sure that you pick likely schools that have good career data and bar passage rates, because if you end up going to a school where it's a struggle to pass the bar, that's doing yourself a disservice. But you should think hard about what is the most important to you. Is it to be an attorney and do what you want to do, or go to Harvard? I think most people would say it's being an attorney and having a fulfilling career over having that diploma from Harvard on the wall. So if that's the case, then you can look at schools that maybe are in the top 30 that are reputed, like well reputed in a local area. If you know where you want to land after you graduate in terms of a location, pick some schools that might not be in the top 14, but are very highly regarded locally. For example, American University in DC might not be in the top 14, but if you want to go into, to be a clerk for a judge, or go into constitutional law, it's an excellent school. Also in the Silicon Valley, I'm in this Bay Area, and a lot of people come to me and they're like, I want to go to Berkeley or Stanford, and that's awesome. If you want to go into high tech, IP, crypto, or patents, or whatever, there's a school called Santa Clara University that is in the heart of the Silicon Valley. Apple, Google, Meta, all those huge companies hire directly from Santa Clara. Also, big law firms in San Francisco and San Jose. It's not as competitive to get into, but they have amazing specialty programs for tech law that get awards. So you should look at schools like that, where if you want to land in the Silicon Valley, Santa Clara is an awesome school to put on your list. Even if you don't, if you end up not going there, but you get in there, it's a great school to have as a backup plan. And anyway, just I feel really strongly that if you feel that you really want to be a lawyer beyond just where you go to law school, there are so many great law schools and you will get into a great law school. Just try and have your expectations managed and broaden your kind of your horizon. Okay. Now we're at the Q&A, right on time. So you can unmute yourself if you want to speak with your voice, or you can just type here, and I am here for 15 more minutes. Anyone?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much, first of all, for this incredible information. I found it very valuable. My question is regarding your one-on-one mentorship. If you could discuss a little bit about that. And I saw an email on the Leland website. Can you share a bit about the services you provide and the cost of that?
Yeah, I would love to. So, first of all, cost is, I'm customizable. So I am on the higher side if you look at Leland coaches, but I think it's commensurate with my experience having worked at Stanford and doing this for over 10 years. And I work hourly or I have packages. So some people decide they don't need the everything comprehensive holding hands for a whole year. I have people signing up right now for packages where I will be their partner from right now until they are deciding where they want to go to law school, in a year from now. So it's like a whole year long mentorship. And that goes by how many schools you apply for. And then I have essay only packages, like one essay if you just want that one professional essay, two essays or three essays. And then I have hourly and I mix and match. And really, depending on what you need, it's great to do an intro call with me and then we can figure out what looks best for you and what your plans and goals are. Yeah, so my prices are on my profile. I think yeah, I just typed my profile in. So you can dig around in there and look at what my offerings are. There are some Leland standard offerings and then my own custom offerings. So look at my custom ones because I believe the Leland ones are actually a little bit more expensive if you're looking for more affordable. But again, I'm happy to make something custom just for you as well. And how it works too is, so it's asynchronous, meaning if we're working on essays, we'll do a brainstorming session together and then we'll kind of send drafts back and forth. For my comprehensive, we talk on the phone in 15-minute increments when you need to, and we do a lot of work offline as well. Okay. If I'm the giveaway winner, am I going to get a follow-up email from the law school application boot camps? Yes, Jesus, you will definitely get a follow-up, and I'll make sure that Nick, who was the one who showed up here, does that. Or someone, I think Ellie might be the person who might do that. But yes, you'll definitely get a follow-up. Another question. How should the letter of recommendations differ for professors? Don't worry about them not being repetitive. I'm sure if they're two different professors in two different topics, they're going to write different things about you. They also have different perspectives and different experiences about their work with you and their interactions with you. I've never had a person, like when I was reading all of those letters of rec, I never looked at them going, wow, these letters are the same. That just doesn't happen. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. How much do our internships, extracurriculars, and work experience count towards our application? So, Fatima, I mean, so it is a holistic approach. So the people that are still in school don't have those things. They might have lots of extracurriculars in school. The people who have been out of school for a while, they will look for what you've been doing since school. But in terms of like how much they weigh, it's really hard to really quantify that in a number. But for extracurriculars, for those of you who are in school, they do look for things like quality over quantity, meaning they'd much rather you show commitment, progression. So like if you started out as a member of a club and then you ran for an office, that's better than being in 5 different things where you just participated in 1 quarter each time. If you show kind of commitment and progression. And internships, extracurriculars, and work experience, obviously, like your resume as you are out of school, it counts. It's kind of like, I would if you've been out of school for 3 years, I would expect you to have 3 years of work unless you have an explanation and some sort of progression in those 3 years. So, but I'm happy to work with you and we can figure out, you know, what if you have a concern, we can talk that through. Also, this is recorded, so everyone who's joined late will get a link to the recording so you can see the beginning. Let's see. Even if a law school accepts up to 4 letters, do you recommend submitting more than 2? So yeah, if they admit, I'm sorry, if they accept up to 4 letters, you can do 2 or 3. I feel like if you've been out of work for a while and you do 2 professors, I mean, out of school, gosh, I can't talk. 2, sorry, 2 professors and 1 work-related one, if you've been out for a while, is ideal. 4 might be a lot, but you might have missed, I said you can have 4 in the LSAC system, and if you're waitlisted, submitting the last one during your waitlist period is kind of a nice thing, nice addition. Say I have 2 letters from professors, would you advise I submit a 3rd one from a manager? Would this not be very helpful? It depends. I think if you have been working with that manager and you think that they would be an excellent recommender, it can't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have another good one. So go for it. We have a few more minutes. Anyone else want to pipe in? I hope you found this helpful. As I said, I'm going to be doing, there's Law School Week, the first week of April. I'm going to be participating in 2 events during Law School Week, and then the boot camp in June, and I'm going to be teaching, I believe, 3 more free classes in April. So you'll see me around, and I'd love to see you back. And let's see, if someone, yeah, and definitely schedule an intro call with me if you want more information on how we could work together. And if you like this class, I would really, really appreciate, I think after the class, you have the option to give me a review. If you feel like I deserve a 5-star review, I would love to have you click that button because it really helps me out. I'm going to stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone thinks of a question. I can talk a little bit about addenda. So people tend to misuse the addenda, I think. Addenda should be used, for example, like if you have a career, you know, if you have a gap on your resume, or if you have 1 semester in college with a much lower GPA than the rest, I basically recommend that an addendum is written if there is something in your application profile that you're a little bit concerned about and that an admissions committee person might scratch their head about and be like, I wonder what happened here. This is something I help my clients with. I'll look at the whole thing and be like, oh, you might want to write an addendum here, or don't worry about it. I think one mistake people make is calling attention to something that maybe the admissions committee would gloss over. So you don't want to write something and then the admissions committee look at it then and then start getting concerns. The way I think about applying for law school, it's almost like, well, what the admissions committees are doing, it's almost like a risk assessment. So they are looking at each person and trying to assess the risk. If we admit this person, will they succeed? Will they be a good addition to our community? Are there any red flags? So don't call attention or or provide red flags where they might not exist. So, if someone has a really great GPA and a couple Bs, I don't recommend you write an addendum about 2 Bs in, your 4 years. However, if there's something kind of like that is really outstanding, you look at the transcript and there's, a few withdrawals or a couple Ds, then you might want to think about writing an addendum. And that is also, it makes sense, then let's say, oh, this seems very common. You were having kind of a mental health issue that semester. So I help people write them so that it doesn't cause more concern. What you want to make sure you do is you write your addendum so that you come out stronger in the end, and that whatever caused those issues at that time are no longer issues for you now and won't affect you in law school. Does the writing section of the LSAT exam factor in at all to the written aspects of your application package? They do read that, but it's not a huge, I think your personal statement means a lot more. I think that the written part of the LSAT is more of a, thinking on your feet kind of thing. And the personal statement, they also look at as a writing sample. So just make sure your personal statement is as stellar as it can be. I wouldn't stress too much about the written LSAT. Should we write 2 different addendum for different semesters if they happened in different years? No, you can just write one, 2 paragraphs. They should be really short too. I've read 2-page addendum and that it just is, they kind of start turning into a sob story. I'd much rather just be like, 3 sentences. This happened, this was my remedy, and it's not an issue again. And I do work with people on those. I have time for 1 or 2 more questions if anyone thinks of anything.
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
Can you discuss a bit how to incorporate an award or recognition into your law school application? And then also, is it important to maybe, let's say you were a finalist for a really prestigious award or program, should you include that you were a finalist?
Sure.
If you could just share a
I
bit.
would just put that on your resume. There's also sections in the actual application for most schools where you can write about your awards and stuff. Unless that award, so when you're picking the topic to write in your essays, it doesn't really make sense to write about an award you were a finalist in unless the process was something that you learned, was a self-reflective process and you have something substantive to write about. I think the most boring essays are stuff that just kind of regurgitates transactions that could be on your resume. I've been out of school. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Yes. I'd
Okay.
love to follow up in an intro call though. So
Okay, yeah,
I'll
please. Here's my my profile. I've been out of school for a while and have been working at different companies, but in the same industry. How long should our resume be? I'm so glad you asked that question. So a lot of people think there is a rule that your resume has to be 1 page long. Unless a law school says 1 page, it can be 2, especially if you've been out of school for some time and you have a bunch of experiences. Please do a 2-page resume. If you cram everything into 1 page with a 9-point font and no margins, it's wonky. So make it 2 pages, make it easily readable, and it's perfectly fine. I've helped a million people get into law school with 2-page resumes. Also, I don't want you to stress too much about your resume. It's a supportive document. So especially when they're reading your professional essay, which is the one where you're talking about your background, what your aspirations are, why you want a law degree, what you need it for, what you're going to do. The resume, if you're going to be referring back to the resume, it's just kind of like, okay, you can, if you do your resume right and flesh it out enough, you can just say, when I was in my, during my work at so and so, that's all you have to say. The resume will say all the stuff you did at that job, and that will allow you space in your essay to go into more kind of details about what means the most to you and what your values are and what it meant to work in that capacity. And the resume will be like, these are the things I actually did in the job. So if you flesh out the resume enough, you can make your personal essay much more interesting. What would be your advice for a candidate that has a strong interest in pursuing an area of law, but they don't have an extensive experience in that area? How can they show commitment to that area? Oh, that's a great question. Just the way you tell your story is going to show the commitment. If there is something that influenced you to be, wanting to help a certain population or advocate for something or help a policy change or something like that, talk about why it's important to you and talk about, in such a way that they feel they start feeling it's important as well. Make them care about what you care about, and you've done your job. Hopefully that helps. All right, everyone. I'm a little bit over. I hope you enjoyed the class. Feel free to give me a review. I would love it if you did. Sign up for intro calls. I'd be happy to help you. I should tell you that April, my capacity starts filling up. I don't like to take unlimited clients because then I won't have time for everyone. So if you are thinking about working with me, let's hop on a call and make sure it's a good fit and go from there. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.